I'm JasonLasVegas, and these are my 2025 NFL Week 3 picks. Okay, so it is currently 3:12 a.m. here in Las Vegas. The NFL Week 3 lines are out, so let's make some picks. The first game for the 2025 NFL Week 3 season will be the Miami Dolphins 0-2 on the road versus the 2-0 Buffalo Bills. Division game, short week game. Who knows how much they're going to win by, but we all know that the Buffalo Bills will win this game. So I'm just going to take the Buffalo Bills on a money line. The Buffalo Bills coming off of a win versus the Jets where they did cover. Miami coming off of a loss to the Patriots at home. So I'll just take Buffalo to win on a money line. Next game will be the Green Bay Packers 2-0 on the road versus the 0-2 Cleveland Browns. We all know the Green Bay Packers will win this game. I don't know if it's going to be 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. It doesn't matter. But the Packers will win this game. So we'll just take the Packers on a money line situation. Next game, we have two backup quarterbacks, I believe, in this game. I believe both starting quarterbacks are injured. The 2-0 Cincinnati Bengals on the road getting 3 points against the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings on a against the spread situation. I like Minnesota at home. Minnesota coming off of a loss to the Falcons, right? They didn't play too well in that game, but I don't really like the Bengals. I believe Browning came in the game for Joe Burrow. And he threw three interceptions, right? So I don't see him doing that well versus this Minnesota defense. Minnesota at home, Bengals. They kind of already have 2 wins on the season, so they're kind of playing with house money. I expect the Bengals to not only lose, but I expect the Vikings to cover. Even though JJ McCarthy is injured, I feel I feel strong enough about this Vikings defense, and I think there's enough offense for the Vikings to win this game of -3. The next game will be the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road versus the New England Patriots. This is a tough one because the Steelers coming off of a loss at home versus the Seahawks. Patriots coming off of a win on the road versus the Miami Dolphins. I just don't feel like I have an edge in this game. I probably would lean towards the Patriots, but can I trust them after they got beat at home versus, the Las Vegas Raiders looked terrible in their last game, and then the Steelers, they gave up a lot of points versus the Jets. They gave up a lot of points versus the Seattle Seahawks. Steelers were favorites in that game. They ended up losing by 15 points or something like that. So this is a game I'm just gonna skip. We'll see who is gonna move one step closer to being in the playoff conversation, and then the other team is gonna move one step closer to being out of the playoff conversation. I definitely expect one of these two teams to make the playoffs. So whichever one loses is gonna have a more of a problem. So because this game is so close, because both teams have looked good one week and then bad the second week, I'm just gonna skip that game right there. The next game we have the 2-0 Los Angeles Rams on the road versus the 2-0 Philadelphia Eagles. 3.5 seems like a little bit too many points, right? I don't think the Eagles covered versus the Chiefs last week, but you know what? I'm gonna still take the Eagles to win this game on a money line situation. Right, this is gonna be a tough game for the Eagles. The Eagles coming off a win versus the Chiefs on the road. That's a good win, but the Rams are really good. The Rams coming off a win on the road versus who did they play? The Tennessee Titans. But I still think the Eagles have enough to win this game. I'm not gonna give points against the spread because Eagles they just play to win the game. But 3.5, a little bit too many points for a team that's just playing to win the game. So I'll take the Eagles just to win on a money line situation here. The next game will be the 0-2 New York Jets on the road versus the 2-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I believe this is another situation where the Jets quarterback may be injured. Fields, from what I heard, I think there's some injury there. So because of that reason, Tampa Bay Buccaneers are really good. I like them. We're going to try to get some against the spread bets here. I think when this line came out, it was like 6.5, right? I may have missed that, but Either way, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are two score better than the Jets, especially without the Jets starting quarterback. So, we want to get a few against the spread parlays and against the spread bets in here. So we'll take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the spread to win there. Next game here, we have the Las Vegas Raiders on the road versus the Commanders. I feel like there's just too many points. I know the Raiders looked terrible versus the Chargers, but the Chargers may be really good. I think that's what we're forgetting. That the Chargers may be really good, even though Geno Smith, despite how good any team is, you shouldn't throw. I think Geno Smith threw 3 interceptions also, right? Then he was like 0 for 11 from like passes over 10 yards or something. So I have no idea what happened there. The Raiders just lost themselves. But it's still too many points. I think the Commanders may be dealing with a quarterback injury. Like, what is going on? There's a lot of injuries going on really quick and early in this NFL season. But I do believe the Commanders, Jaden Daniels may be dealing with a injury there also, right? So for that reason, I think this is a comeback game for the Raiders. You know what? I don't want to take the Raiders on a money line situation. It seems a little bit too much. I'll just take them against the spread, but I do think the Raiders are probably one of the best teams this week as the underdog to probably pull out upset and win. So I'll take the Raiders. Hopefully the Raiders could come back and get right from that game and at least keep it close, right? 3.5, right, on the road, right? You could lose by 3 and we could still win that bet right there. Next game will be the 1-1 Falcons on the road versus the 0-2 Panthers. Once again, like I said, we're trying to get as many against the spread bets in here, so we're gonna have to take the Falcons on the road versus the Panthers. The Panthers probably are the worst team. Them and the Saints, the Giants looked way better, so you would say Panthers and Saints right now are battling for the worst team in the league. Falcons looked really good versus the Vikings, right? Robinson looked like he was tackleable. I think that's how you pronounce that. So I don't believe anybody on the Panthers could tackle Robinson. So like I said, we want to get a few against the spread bets in there. I think the Falcons are definitely more than a score better than the Panthers. Panthers probably keep it close, but if you're going to give me, if this was like 7.5, I would probably take the Falcons, but I do think the Falcons could probably win this game by at least 1 touchdown and a field goal. So I'll take the Falcons against the spread. Next game will be the Texans on the road versus the Jaguars. Jaguars, man. Jaguars coming off of a loss on the road to the Bengals. And I mean, obviously, before the week, you would say, yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, Joe Burrow got injured very early in that game. And like I said, I believe Browning, who came in for Joe Burrow, threw a bunch of interceptions. Maybe I could be wrong, but I thought that happened. And the Jaguars still lost that game. But I mean, the Texans, my goodness, them coming off of a home loss to the Buccaneers, right? I like the Jags. I might as well take the Jags against the spread, right? I don't think the Texans being 0-2, I don't think they're one of the best underdogs to bet this week. So for that reason, I don't even understand why this line is 1. I thought it was like 3. I'm a little bit surprised that this line is as close. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's an injury on the Jags. Maybe the quarterback is injured for the Jags also or something, because I would expect this line to be way, way higher for the Jags at home versus a team 0-2. So, maybe I'm missing something here, but I'm a little bit surprised that this line is so close. But I'll still take the Jags -1, Next game will be the Indianapolis Colts. Surprise, the most surprising team of the season, right, so far. Indianapolis Colts 2-0 on the road versus the 0-2 Titans. I like the against the spread bet here, but I'm going to take the Colts. I feel like I haven't been paying too much attention to the Colts. I know they've been winning. I don't know if they've been blowing teams out or anything like that, by like 6 or 7 points or 3.5. A little bit too close for me. If this is 2.5, I would easily take it, especially for a team on the road. That's a lot of points, right? If the Colts were at home in this game, for them to be 3.5 favorites on the road, right, versus the Texans. But so for that reason, I don't really need them to win by 3.5 or 4.5. I just want the Colts to just win the game. So that'll be good enough for me for this parlay. The next game will be the Denver Broncos 1-1 on the season versus the 2-0 Chargers, right? Let's try to get another against the spread bet here. Let's try to ride the Chargers. The Broncos coming off of a loss, right? They lost last week to the Colts. Chargers coming off of a very, very, very impressive 2 wins. Started the season versus the Chiefs. They beat the Chiefs. Last week, or yesterday, or a few days ago, Monday night football, week 2 was the Chargers versus the Raiders. And as I mentioned earlier, Gino was playing the Chargers, and I believe the Chargers got 3 interceptions in that game. So I think with Bo Nix not looking so great this season, I'm going to definitely take Herbert this season over Bo Nix. So -3 at home, that seems fair, especially for a division game. But like I said, the Chargers may be really, really good this season. So if it's only 3, this is not 3.5 or 4.5, which is what I probably would have expected this number to be, like 3.5 or 4.5, even 5.5, right? Let's think about it. But Chargers -3, that's fair. I think the worst case scenario is this team wins by at least 3 points. It'll be a push. Next game will be the Saints, 0-2 Saints on the road versus the Seahawks. Have the Saints played all their games at home? I feel like they've been playing both games at home this season. This will be the first road game for the Saints. So 7.5 is a little bit high. Seahawks coming off of a very impressive win versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were on the road that game. They covered in that game. Saints coming off of a loss to the San Francisco 49ers with a backup quarterback. Mike Jones came in that game for the 49ers. He threw the ball well. I think it was 26 for 39. I can't remember specifically. I feel like Seattle has a really good pass game, and Jigba's a really, really, really good receiver. I believe both games this season he had over 100 yards receiving, but I'm not going to give 7.5 points, right? It's just a little bit too much. Remember, the Colts, like I said, coming off of a win versus the Steelers, but the Colts lost the first week versus the 49ers, and they didn't cover in that game. So I'll just give the Colts on a money line situation. I don't see the Saints winning too many games this season. So I definitely don't see the Saints winning their first road game of the season on the road in Seattle. Right, so that seems like an easy money line situation. Next game will be the Cardinals versus the 49ers. My heart is just too close to this game. I'm going to skip it, right? I like the Cardinals. I really, really do. I'm pulling for the Cardinals. But the 49ers just seem really good, right? Mac Jones, as I said, came in last week on the road for the 49ers. 49ers won week 1 versus Seattle Seahawks on the road. They went on the road last week versus the Saints, won that game. I don't expect the 49ers to lose this game at home. 1.5 is crazy for the a 2-0 team at home, right? In the division, 1.5. So someone knows something. This could be the, come out game for the Cardinals when they go on the road and beat the 49ers. And then people are saying, well, the 49ers is going to be okay because Brock Purdy was injured and, and stuff like that, and not really give too much credit to the Cardinals, even if they do win this game. So I just want to sit back as a football fan and just watch and see who wins that game. The next game, we have the Cowboys on the road, plus 1.5, 1-1 Cowboys on the road, +1. Versus the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears gave up, how many points did they give up? 52 points to the Lions, and the Cowboys are underdogs here. We haven't taken any underdogs to win outright. I don't think so, right? So I'm going to take the Cowboys this week to win outright versus the Bears. I have no idea what's going on with the Bears. Cowboys, these two teams give up a lot of points on defense. I'm a little worried about that Cowboys defense, but I think if we look at it, if you think about it, I think this is probably the worst offense, the Cowboys defense. Well, maybe the Giants offense, right? I feel like the Giants offense is worse, but Russell Wilson was airing it out there, right? I just don't think Williams has even the confidence. There's just so much going on. You have a new head coach. I like the Cowboys to win this game outright. So I'll take the Cowboys to win. I'm a little bit surprised about this line. Maybe someone knows something here that, but I mean the Cowboys are underdogs on the road versus the 0-2 Bears. Like I said, I'm a little bit surprised. I thought the Cowboys would have been maybe at least 1 point favorites, maybe 2 point favorites in this game, especially if the Bears coming off of a really, really embarrassing 52-point loss to the Lions. So I'll take the Cowboys to win outright as a dog. Next game will be the Kansas City Chiefs giving 6.5 points. I mean, come on, versus the New York Giants. Seemed like an easy, it seemed like an easy money line situation for Kansas. I'm not gonna give 6.5 points for Kansas. When's the last time Kansas has beat a team by 6.5 points when they were, supposed to beat a team by that much? Chiefs wins a lot of games. Even last season, I think they won the most one-score games, but they're not beating teams by 1 or 2 scores, even like that anymore. So I'll just take the Chiefs on a money line situation. Now, let's be honest. I don't think the Chiefs are going to lose this game. I would be shocked. Russell Wilson is coming off of an incredible performance versus the Cowboys, where he threw for like 450 yards. So that part worries me, but also with Russell Wilson, he's going to throw an interception at some point in this game and, just turn the ball over. So I think the Chiefs defense can get 1, maybe 2 turnovers in this game and a pivotal point, and, Mahomes wins this game. But I'm not going to give 6.5 points for a team on the road who is 0-2 on the season. And the last game of the 2025 NFL Week 3 season will be a Monday night game between the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens. Both teams 1-1. Both teams getting their first win of the season. Ravens defeated the Browns. The Lions defeated the Bears. Division games for those two teams. Ravens, man, I'm a little worried about the Ravens, right? Lions coming off of a 52-point outing versus the Bears. That was a little bit personal there. Then, the Bears' new head coach was the Lions' offensive coach last season. So there was some revenge factor there. These are two teams who probably want to play each other in the Super Bowl. Man, I would say 5.5 is way too many points for the Ravens. The Ravens should definitely win this game. I'll give the Ravens a chance to win this game, but I'm not going to take them in a against the spread situation. The Ravens, especially in that fourth quarter, that first game of the season, that Ravens defense gave up 250 passing yards to the MVP, Josh Allen. But I mean, I don't think anybody, right? Like, I don't know if that's ever been done before. 250 passing yards in one quarter. So for that reason, I worry about the backdoor cover. Like I said, the Lions coming off of a game where they scored 52 points. That's a lot of points for that Ravens defense to have to shut them down. Lions are a live dog here, right? They are a live dog here. But I think the Ravens should win this game, especially on a Monday night at home, right? Ravens, this will be the second home game. Yeah, the first home game was last week versus the Browns. Yeah. In the first game of the season was the Ravens on the road versus the Bills, and then they came home versus the Browns last week. So second week in a row at home for the Ravens. I think the Ravens should win this game. As long as their head coach is not the former offensive coordinator for the Lions, we'll see. How good that Lions offense and defense will look on the road versus the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, so that is a 14-team parlay. Okay, so we're going to take the Buffalo Bills on a money line, the Green Bay Packers on a money line, the Minnesota Vikings -3 against the spread, the Philadelphia Eagles on a money line, Tampa Bay Buccaneers -7 against the spread, the Las Vegas Raiders +3.5 against the spread, the Atlanta Falcons -6 against the spread, Jacksonville Jaguars -1 against the spread, Colts on a money line, Los Angeles Chargers -3 against the spread, Seattle Seahawks on a money line, Cowboys on a money line, Chiefs on a money line, Ravens on a money line. It's a 14-team parlay, right? Plus 74, 311. We'll bet $2 to win $1,488.23. Okay, so there you have it. Those are my 2025 NFL Week 3 picks. We're taking the Buffalo Bills on a money line versus the Miami Dolphins, the Green Bay Packers on a money line versus the Cleveland Browns, the Minnesota Vikings on a money line versus the Minnesota Vikings against the spread -3. Against the Cincinnati Bengals, Eagles on a money line versus the Rams, Tampa Bay Buccaneers -7 against the spread versus the Jets. The Las Vegas Raiders +3.5 against the spread against the Commanders. The Atlanta Falcons -6 against the spread versus the Panthers. The Jacksonville Jaguars at home -1 against the spread versus the Texans. The Colts on the road on a money line versus the Titans. The Los Angeles Chargers on a money line -3 at home versus the Denver Broncos. The Seattle Seahawks at home on a money line versus the New Orleans Saints. The Cowboys on the road, right? Underdogs on a money line versus the Chicago Bears. The Kansas City Chiefs on the road on a money line versus the New York Giants, and the Baltimore Ravens on a money line at home versus the Detroit Lions. Okay, 14-team parlay. Where did we go? Let's go back here. Boom. Yeah, so let me know, what are your 2025 NFL Week 3 picks? Who are your favorites? Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite underdog? Who's your favorite home team? Who's your favorite road team? What is your lock of the week? As far as lock of the week, I mean, I feel like the Chiefs, right, on the money line, the Chiefs have to win this game versus the Giants, right? Like, I don't feel like we're going to be having a conversation about the Chiefs heading into the week 4 game versus the Ravens, I believe, and they're 0-3. Like, so the Chiefs that seems like an easy money line situation. Maybe it's Seattle, right? Money line versus the Saints. Saints are terrible. Who else? Yeah, there's not too many locks. I feel like maybe the Buccaneers against the spread versus the Jets. I feel like -7 feels fine for the Buccaneers against the spread there. That seems like a pretty strong lock pick. And then the Packers on a money line, or even the Bills. The Bills on a money line situation versus the Dolphins. That almost seems like a guaranteed. Minus spread maybe a little bit too much, but I feel like the Bills are almost the easiest win of the weekend. The Bills and Kansas City Chiefs, I'll probably have to put them in a few parlays together with those two teams. But yeah, I'm Jason, Las Vegas. These are my 2025 NFL Week 3 picks. We have a 14-team parlay, betting $2 to win $1,488.23. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the $1 donation button, and please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.